got this. Oh, goodness. Well, good morning, everyone. Uh, we are on Law 9, Law of the Straight Line. And as we've been discussing over the last 8 weeks, we've been talking about how laws are intertwined. We started with the law of the architect and then went into the law of exchange, so on and so forth. But in each one of these, I'm trying to draw correlations with how the laws are building upon each other. So as we go through life, it can help us better run any circumstances through the filters of the laws. And we've all come to find out that these laws are not unique, but the way we're hearing them, whether it be from someone like myself or Dan or Ira or Ryan Jackson or Anna Choi or anyone else that's doing elevation law calls, everyone has a unique perspective on this. So that's why we've been going and talking about the connection of the laws and not really delving too much into the law itself. But last week we talked about the law of the caterpillar, and Nathaniel made some really good points. And you hear these 4 stages. And it's unique when you first start listening to the law of the straight line, they talk about 4 stages, but then it kind of dives down into 3. And for me, when I look at the law of caterpillar, I can say, all right, what stage are you in the law of the caterpillar will help you determine what stage you are in the law of the straight line. Because right now, I think the law of the straight line may be easier for us to identify where we're at, because it's a little bit better defined. But if we're looking at it that way, we can say, all right, are we making money based on our active hours? Yes or no? And then are we making money on someone else's active hours, which ties into the law of exchange? And then 3 is are we making money based off money making money for us? And I think with that one there, it ties directly into the law of the caterpillar, because when we have money making money for us, that means we've already put people in place, taking in part the law of exchange, but we're now also above selling a product or a service. We now have money invested. So we're working for us 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, no sick days, no vacation, no holidays. It's just working, which is a great place to be. And what was nice about it is when you think about that some people think, oh, well, I've got to have, $10,000 in the bank, $100,000 in the bank, $1,000 in the bank, or $100 in the bank, whatever that number looks like. You can always start putting money into investment opportunities where they make money for you. Because if you invest in stocks, if you put in $100, you're buying $100 worth of stock. Now, let's say that stock is worth $1,000. You're not getting a whole stock, but if that stock goes up by 5%, your $100 went up by 5%. If it goes up by 10%, your $100 went up by 10%. It's always equal to where people think, I don't own a full share. But you have to start somewhere. You have to figure out where it is. But that, is a little bit harder to do if we're still active hours. If we're putting in, 60, 70, 80 hours a week, if not more, maybe less, because what are we robbing from? What are we, taking focus off of? Principle of present, the law of exchange, where are those things that we're stealing from? Because active hours, we only have so much. So as we talked about, I've always liked saying, with this call, is having an anchor point, and being the architect gives you that anchor point. And when you have your anchor point of what you're good at and what you're going to move forward at, you can start utilizing that to barter time. And I was thinking about this here as I was, knew we were getting on this call. And I was like, all right, I'm not a great writer. I can compose a sentence. Might have some spelling errors, but thank God for Google or Microsoft Word. But with that being said, I could probably reach out. I'm gonna pick on someone. I could reach out to Cynthia, who's not here. It's easier to pick on someone that's not here. And like, Cynthia, hey, I need you to help me write a referral letter for someone, because I'm going to start reaching out to college or high school students and seeing if I can get their active hours as a intern for my business. Now, those that have met Ira knows that he's doing this within his business. But we're not going to be paying them, but it now gives us the ability to mentor someone, educate them in the laws, which is, as a maven, that's one thing that we're supposed to do. I know some of you are not mavens yet, and that's what this calls for, is to hopefully get you to the maven status. But it gives you an opportunity to mentor. But if you can say, all right, well, if you can give me 10 hours for a week for 3 months, so you're looking at 12 weeks of work, give me 10 hours and you help me with my social media. And I'm picking on teenagers and social media because it seems to be relevant. And can you help me create content and post or create a social media calendar? And some of these kids are going to be, heck yeah. Well, what do I get in return? Well, one, I'm going to train you how to look at things differently. And then once you're done, I'm going to write you a referral letter saying that you have the experience and the know-how so you can take it forward with you. Because I was thinking about that and I go, I've never gone into a job interview and saying, well, they look at my resume and they ask what I want to get paid, but they didn't go, what did you get paid on your last job? What did you get paid on the job before that? They want to know about the experience and if you were able to deliver. So that might be something to look at. That's, a fresh idea. It popped in my head this morning as I was getting my kids ready for school. But if we think about that, because we all have a position or a leverage position for someone else. And if we can say, I've worked with, I've partnered with, I've done a joint venture with, I've mentored, I've coached, whatever that may be, that's a good place to be. And then that's allowing you to take stuff off your plate and focus on being the architect. So now you're moving from, in the law of the straight line, from active hours to, having someone put in active hours for you. You're exchanging time. And you can start with one. And if that works out well, maybe go to two. Maybe when you get the second one, you make one of them a virtual assistant or make them your assistant. Say, hey, we need, and put out a finite time. And at that finite time, say, if you would like to continue, here's what I can offer. Whether you have money, resources, or time, there is an exchange in that. So, because I value each and every one of your time, hopefully that y'all value each of your own time as well, and you value mine. But imagine what that could do for you and your business and give you new insight to your business, because you're the expert in your business, but sometimes you're so close to your business, you can't see the good for the bad, can't see the forest because of the trees. So it's just something to think about. But if you're able to free up, 10 hours a week, and let's say you now have, more time with your kids, that ties into the principle of perseverance, because you're now getting engaged. And we talked about, I said the triangle, and that it was funny. Last week, I was on a call and they said it should be a square. And because it's spiritual, family, work, and play. So I said, no, I kind of like the family, friends, work, but I digress. But you can always find things to help keep you motivated. And that's a good place to be. But if you can find that 10 hours a week and you're not putting forth time, and you have 10 hours to focus on the larger task that are going to yield higher results, higher earnings, that allows you to start thinking about, all right, well, if I'm earning 5% more a month, that's 5% that I was not expecting to get. I need to invest in that because I'm already living in this. If as long as all my bills are paid, I'm not in debt or anything like that there. Obviously, we know debt's not a bad thing, but everything's taken care of. Start investing in that into other things. And you may have say, all right, well, I have this, but crap, Vince is doing this. He's working with Harish. He's working with a couple other folks. I can't remember. I'm sorry, Vince. Um, heads in the fog. But you can say, all right, well, Vince, what do you need from me? And he may say, I need money, or I need this. Now you have that time to barter because you freed up time, or now you have additional resources in the funds of capital to have active hours. I'm sorry, have money make you money for you. So it's a good place to look at, think about. But that's how this law, I think, ties so well into the law of the caterpillar, because it is really stages and we have to look at it. And going back to our anchor point, the law of the architect, if I'm really being serious in the law of the architect, now I'm at the law of straight line. Am I moving into the second law and creating an exchange with anybody else? Or am I doing this all by myself? And at what point will the principle of perseverance keep me from moving forward because I'm burnt out? And those are things to think about as each and every single one of these laws interlock, intertwine, and create a filter that, we can put in front of us as we're going through life and saying, all right, how is this going to be a benefit to my vision moving forward? Because my vision is on a grander scale. My vision is to make a global impact. Even though my global impact may only have a footprint here in Georgia, but the ripple effects of the people I connect with is the global impact. And I want people that think about that, or for you to think about that, is to say your impact, you may never know the reach of it, but you have to be really, really, really good at what you're at. Because I think of like Renita and what you're doing, that's absolutely phenomenal what you're doing down there. And that impact could give someone the principle of perseverance, that they can go out, persevere, and change the world because of what you put in, what time you put into them. Same with Cherie, same exact same. You talk about, the community up there in Canada that you're putting together and all the resources. I mean, that right there, you never know. The child that you have an impact on today could be the next prime minister, next president, next governor, whatever that may be. So, but we have to be fully present in that. And we also have to have the principle of perseverance to move forward in that. But all that coming to the law that we're at right now is you were able to, manage your active hours, put forth a team around you that can be a sounding board, an echo of what you're already trying to do in that market. And now you have the resources to work in other capacities. Like I don't see myself going to Cambodia and digging wells, me personally, but I would easily fund a project to provide fresh drinking water. If I could partner with someone that was already doing that and that was their passion to be on the ground doing that, why do I have to be there doing that? That's not my skill set. It may enrich my soul for a week, but if I can help fund that project, that right there is a global impact. And we have to think about these things in that manner. So I'm going to pause because I've said a lot. Maybe I haven't said a lot. I don't know. But I'd love to hear, your thoughts on this and seeing what you're pulling from the first 8 laws we've gone through and how it's impacting the law of the straight line as we talk about today.
Well, it occurred to me, Matt, that as you were speaking, I have a resource out there, somebody that wants to learn, and I need to engage them, and it's less than $25 an hour, and she's a great grammarian. You might steal her from me because she really does know her grammar. No, just kidding. And she's a permanent sub at a high school, and she has an hourly teacher's break in the teacher's lounge once a day, and that's 5 hours a week. And she wants to learn grant writing. I shared the resource with Teresa too, because I think we could really engage her, teach her how to do grants. But then I was thinking, well, shoot, in between grants, there's other work. So as you were talking, I'm like, Vince, stop thinking that she's only one tool. Like, she's a grammarian, she could proof website, she could proof marketing collateral. There's lots of stuff she could do. And she's really excited to get engaged in the nonprofit world. And I need to offload some tasks, and so does Teresa. And so we've had some calls. Teresa, I'm happy to just say, man, how can we use this resource that sits in the teacher's lounge 1 hour a day? It's like, hey, can you review this or whatever, and try to offload some of these things and make us be more productive. And she's motivated. So thank you for sharing these interconnections, because my brain was kind of listening and connecting solutions as you spoke.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
This is timely for me because I just started working with an intern who has finished my grant writing program and was all about it. Like, the minute I mentioned possibly starting an internship, he asked about it every time we talked, until I was like, okay, let's just do it. I don't have all the details together, but let's just run with it and go, and we'll see where it leads. And he's like on fire, wanting to learn and help and do the stuff. So this is really timely to help me figure out how to incorporate the other laws with the internship and with the exchange, to make sure it's moving towards the bigger goals and also giving him value at the same time, and making sure it's a win for both sides. And then my thought was, once I do it with him, then I can figure out, okay, where does he go from there? But then also, how can I replicate it with maybe 3 to 5 people instead of just the one? But I didn't want to take on so much at once that I was spending all my time managing 5 or 10 interns and running around with them, and then not able to work on the higher level stuff. So this has been helpful to help me get unstuck and close some cycles that have been hanging over my head for a long time. And putting him on those, he's eager, went through law school, so he's very bright, very detailed, and a good fit. So yeah, just as always, the connection between the laws is really useful for me to think through all the ways to implement, especially the more I hear about exchange. Yeah, I have the concept, but the more examples and connections I hear through this and through other conversations of how people are using it, the more helpful it is to realize, all the different ways to start plugging it in.
Yeah. And one thing I want you to think about, and, and this just popped in my head. So this gentleman that you're talking about for the internship, or build out that time frame, say, hey, here's what it is. And then you want to go to 3 to 5. That's your goal. That's a vision that you have to go to 3 to 5, but you have to input the time first. And then now you have metrics. You can say, all right, well, I did it with 1. If I can allow him to take over that program and manage the 3 to 5, what revenue would that generate? And because it's taking time off my plate, do I need to do a 50-50 split, 60-40, 70-30, 80-20, whatever that looks like? Because you're not going to be able to scale everything. I'm not saying that to demotivate anything, but you can put forth metric and say, all right, well, here's, if we were to get 3 to 5, I expect to do this. You're the architect. You know what 3 or 5 new people would do in grant writing and what that could look like. and maybe cut that number in half because law of exchange. And be transparent and like, all right, we're not creating an abundance exchange, we're creating a fair exchange. Because you are the architect of the exchange, but in the event it goes well, you have the ability to bless or provide an abundance exchange for other people, whether that be that first intern or to offer up a partnership or a paid apprenticeship with one or two, if not all of the others. But you have to be able to put those metrics in place and be able to measure it first before you can move forward with the next steps. But be able to take that first step in getting the first one is a huge leap forward, because I think I've said it on this. I think it's the Jesuit school. They say, you know, give us your child the first 7 years and we can tell you what they're going to be in life. I think of my children. I have an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old. And they look at my wife like she hung the moon. They look at me occasionally like I hung the moon. But, you know, with that, I look at my neighbors and my two boys, they would rather spend time with my neighbor. They're like, Mr. Mike, Mr. Mike. They're always wanting to spend time with me and Mr. Mike. But if I'm like, want to go do the same thing without Mr. Mike, they're like, we'll stay inside. But think of it, and I'm not offended by it, but think of the position that we had as children looking up to those people of our age currently and saying, if I could learn from them. Now, obviously, an 8-year-old's not going to be your intern, but think about that. Because what happens over time is we're being told, you got to fit in this box, you got to do this, you got to follow these rules. Being an entrepreneur means you're a rule breaker. It means you're painting outside the lines because you see an opportunity. You have to break outside the norm of what you built up into and figure that out. So finding that younger generation that is probably looking at you going, oh my God, you are a rock star. You are Gladys Knight. I'm sorry, I'm a Georgia guy. Gladys Knight and the Pips. So, or you know, you're Martin Luther King. I mean, someone of admiration. There is someone in your circle right now that looks at each and every one of us in a point of admiration. And they have a resource or value for us. We just need to figure out how a fair exchange looks for them. That happens with a conversation. And what Vince was saying is a grammarist. You know, I hate putting my title out there, whether it be VP of sales, CEO, chairman of the board. I hate it. I absolutely hate it, because as soon as I do that, I'm put into a box. Because if I could think of it quick enough, I'd say, all right, everyone raise your hands. Let's do a test. I'm not going to ask you to do that. But are you creative? Maybe. Do you have skills with words? Possibly. Are you good at math? Maybe. Can you be objective when looking at someone else's business? Yes. These are skills that we have, but we've been put into these boxes that someone else created for us. We are entrepreneurs and we are creating our own box. And we're creating our box that fits us. And my box is pretty dang big because I got a big head. I'm a very conceited person. But with that being said, you have to think outside of the box to make an impact. To be generational wealth. And again, I don't say what that number is because it's different for every single person. I like how Dan talks about you need money to make an impact. Yes, but you also need a network to make impact. And if I know what my generational wealth number is, and I know people in my network that have 5 times that amount currently, but they look at me and they lean on me. So I have impact. I have influence over that. So it's not meaning they're giving me money when I ask for it. But when they ask for my advice, I'm able to provide it and provide my vision for the world to what they're trying to do. Because they're not saying, Matt, look at this spreadsheet and tell me where I'm making money, losing money. No, it's a CPA. What do you think about this business idea? And for me, that's business development. But I think as an entrepreneur, we're always developing our business. But as developing our business, we have to have a team. In the second part of this law of straight line, is we need to have those people that we can barter time with. And then the last part is we need to have a way for money to make money for us. Now, I like to invest. I have investments, but I also think my network, this is one thing that the law doesn't say. This is my own 2 cents. So if it gets outside this, it probably not going to go well. Maybe it does. But my influence over other people that have money, that's money making money for me, because I'm creating an exchange with them where they're going to invest or they're going to pay me. And their ideas, their reach might be bigger than mine. I haven't really come out and said it yet, but I'll say it here for the first time. So what two of the goals, my audacious goals in 2023, create a partnership with Richard Branson or Elon Musk. I know how to get a hold of one. But if I spend, an hour a week just trying to get a hold of them, get a meeting, and if one of them says, I'll give you, 30 minutes, what the crap? Whether we do business or not, I'm going to be their principal of present. I'm going to be there on fire, hair's on fire. If they tell me to wear a skirt, I'm going to, whatever they ask, I'm going to be there present to learn whatever I can take from that. And that's the same mentality we have to have, because we think of those people as super successful, but we always have idols. And you've heard Dan talk about Jay-Z and Beyonce. They're kind of untouchable. But if the people at Run DMC, we are that conduit right now. I'm looking at Richard Branson, Elon Musk, but someone that I don't know.
Hey, Matt.
Yeah.
Just to push back on that within the law of attraction, when you put a name tag, it severely limits the universe. And if you state that same statement with a Richard Branson or Elon Musk like person, then you actually open it up to different genders. So you get the rest, another half of the world, but you get minorities. So what I'm basically saying is the universe could bring you someone that's not Elon Musk or Richard Branson, because they are getting up in age. And Richard Branson, I mean, he may not be as young and spry now as his pictures are on social media. And Elon Musk has turned Twitter into a porta potty graffiti, the graffiti on the inside of a porta potty. So, I mean, in my exercise of law of attraction, I found that I limit the universe by putting name tags on things. So I'm just pushing back as a bellwether friend that says, if you open up that statement, that the universe is going to bring you someone that's just like that person, but even better. So,
and you're absolutely right. So again, Dan talks about having big, audacious ideas. It allows me to put a target out there. Like, to get a hold of Richard Branson, I call Craig Hanley. And, if I talk with Craig, maybe Craig will make an introduction for me. But Craig may say, hey, you might want to talk with so-and-so, which is because I'm not looking at airlines or, a cruise line. But I also know that because of those things, Richard has invested in carbon neutral technology. And I also know Elon, I don't care what he's done with Tesla. I think batteries are dumb. I don't care what he's done with Twitter, but what he's doing with the Solar City and that, or the portable small housing. I like that because it's creating, but they may say, hey, you don't need to talk with him, but you're absolutely right, Vince. But by putting it out there, I have a goal, and if being present on that goal throughout that journey, if I'm truly trying to make that and someone says, hey, well, you need to do this and this, I look at it as a learning opportunity. But what going back is there's someone, behind me that may be looking at reaching a Dan Vega or Renita. They're looking to reach one of you two. And they're like, well, if we get in touch with Matt, and there's that conduit, because you never know who's behind you, like to your point, and you never putting a label in front of you. But we all have goals, and that's why we say generational wealth. I don't like saying a number because, I think it, creates a conflict for me, but I can see how that exactly what you're saying about Elon or, Richard is exactly the same context.
Yeah, I apologize for the
Oh, no, no.
opinion on
Oh, no,
Elon,
no.
but I'm actually thinking about getting off Twitter because I've had, and my wife actually noticed it too. There's just a sense of more anger, more nudity since Elon fired people, and it's like someone's not doing their job. But and then I just saw Facebook is laying off 11,000 people.
Yeah.
With regards to Craig Hanley, he wrote I wasn't able to do the monthly call this month, but the month before, he talked about a really neat suicide prevention song that he wrote, co-wrote, and then he shared it with me. And then I shared it with a nonprofit, a guy who has a mental health awareness, suicide prevention nonprofit called Half the Sorrow.
Okay.
If you share a joy, it's twice the joy. If you share a sorrow, it's half the sorrow. So he's
Yeah.
Half the Sorrow Foundation. He lost both brothers to suicide,
Mhm.
and now his life calling is to prevent suicide
Yeah.
and to talk about positive mental health awareness. Well, we want to engage Craig. We've written him a couple emails. We know he's busy. We know he's multimillionaire, but I honestly think he's at my level, Matt, he's my Elon Musk.
Yeah.
And I need someone like you to tell him, like, no, this is a real deal thing. Vince's
Gotcha.
bellwether, and we got to get this done. But
All right.
anyway, I guess, but if you know Craig that well, I need a little extra bump to say, no, this is how this song really affects people. Because if Dennis Gillen go to his speaking gig like in North Dakota, like he did, and use this song before and after, and like start to perpetuate that. If Craig could write a donation, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
But I think Dennis is the right guy, but we're trying to get that. The email's not working, but I digress. I wanted to kind of connect that while while it was fresh.
I'll send a text today.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
I'm gonna hop in for a moment.
Come on.
Matt, I know the coffee is finally hit, and I'm starting to get excited about what everyone's talking about this morning. And I'm like, oh, I could do that, and oh, you're good at that, and I really appreciate what you're saying this morning, Matt. Sometimes we hear the same thing over and over again, and then finally the light bulb goes off.
Yep.
I think that may have happened this morning for me. So thanks. So a couple of things. I think I was talking to someone recently that works with Elon Musk's sister or brother. I just have to think the coffee has to hit a little bit more, but I think that it's my friend Andrew, who's on my advisory board for my company. I think that's who it is. Okay. They work very, very closely together. So I'm not making any promises this morning, but I might be able to do a hookup for you, Matt. let's see what happens.
Yeah.
I also had the wonderful privilege of spending an entire day or half a day with Craig Hanley. What an amazing man. Like, his heart is as big or bigger than he is. Like,
That's a big heart.
He just has a beautiful heart. I was in, that's a whole nother story, how I got to down to just south of Montreal. Where was I? With Bellwether. And I was at this amazing 2-day conference, and Craig was there. I didn't know he was going to be there. I'll post the picture of me and Craig. And then we went, it was just wild. Like, one moment after another, I went to this spa for the day. And I was like, how am I here? And I'm eating amazing food and talking about amazing things. Like, yeah. So he said, like, so I want to encourage you, Vincent, that's my point, to just keep reaching out to him. He wants people to reach out to him. He's like, Tree, I think people are like intimidated by me. Like, why aren't Bellwether people reaching out to me? And I'm like, dude, I have no idea, because you're like the coolest guy I know. So
He's my spirit animal.
so just keep reaching out to him, because I know he wants to be reached out to. And some of his songs are hilarious as well. Like, I had that treat that weekend to hear him just start singing some hilarious songs. Okay, so that's all I wanted to say. Yeah, I wanted to help out Vincent and Matt, and I'm starting to formulate my young people's team in my head. Had a great call yesterday with a woman from Bogota. That's a social impact woman. She's young. Her English isn't great, but she's moving to Vancouver. I had no idea when I reached out to her. I said, hey, you have the word project manager, and I'm formulating my all-female development company team for my projects. And I just she liked something on social of mine, and I reached out to her, and then she said on the call, hey, I'm moving to Vancouver in a month. And I'm like, woohoo, how great is that? Now, your English isn't great yet, but it's good enough. I understand what you're trying to say. Maybe let's put you in an intern program. And she's all about social impact. And she's actually, I posted on LinkedIn yesterday, who introduced me to a similar neighborhood of mine in Bogota. It's called the Bronx. I never knew it existed, and how they the government revitalized this city in the Bronx, and how it went from horrific to absolutely beautiful. So that was another amazing opportunity that I just reached out to her. Anyways, I think that's all I got to say on the law of the line.
Well, any conversation I get to have on moving, I'm not trying to, say I'm going to change the world and on a global impact, but if I can do the lifting for 100 people in my business, and it allows me to keep working with people I love and admire in the trade industries, and I get to continue to, go out and have golf and smoke cigars and drink whiskey with them. Great. I'm a happy guy. I'm a happy guy. But how do I create a bigger impact for those people? And that's what I'm looking at, because, you never know where the conversations are going to go. And if it happens, great. If it doesn't, but those are like, you have to put it out there. You have to think, outlandish, but, going back to the internship, think about not your first job, your first career. And, how many interviews you went through. Maybe you got really lucky in your first interview, you got the job and you didn't have to do anything else. But they talk about experience. And what each and every one of us are doing is experience in the real world that has a global impact. Our companies may not be large, but if we have an internship and we can say, I want to make sure that you have a referral letter from me talking about you and what you've done, which is basically a description of the job that you're asking them to do, kind of like what you'd want to put in the one ads or Craigslist, whatever it may be. You're now giving that person a level up, because now they can say, I have experience doing this, and I did it for a period of time. And if you want, call the CEO, again, titles, because some people they're like, the CEO is going to give you a personal recommendation. Absolutely. Because I'm that awesome. Think of the level of confidence that person has now going into that job interview, knowing that they're supported by someone like yourself. Whether you think of yourself on that level, that's a whole nother thing I don't get into, but I'm thinking of you on that level. And the reason you're in the alliance is because someone thought of you on that level. So think about that, and just having those resources available to say, hey, this, you'll get this, you'll get time, you'll get expertise, and you'll get to learn from me directly. And that's a great place to start generating value for someone. And you never know what's going to come out of it because of principal present, what you can learn from it as well. Which is, probably the biggest joy that we could all take away from it. Renita, you've been quiet. Have you not had your coffee this morning?
I have. I'm just letting all of this land. I just feel like everything is shifting around in there. I think for me, it's really going back to the law of the architect and looking at everything differently. I love the idea of the internship. I know over the weekend it was mentioned about taking inventory. So I'm really looking to do that. Like, where are my skills? What can I exchange with somebody? Whether it's an internship or a joint venture. So just trying to think outside of that box that I put myself in, and how can I do this differently?
Yeah. And unfortunately, to get outside that box, you actually have to look at yourself as a higher achiever, because I know everyone has self-doubts.
Yeah.
There's no one that I've ever met that didn't have self-doubts. And that was reaffirmed, you might have heard Aaron Ellis talk about his mentor, who's like the co-founder of Microsoft or something like that. And he said he was thinking, because he was, a multi-billionaire, that he didn't face fear of, but Aaron asked him, he says, how often do you, face fear and, want to crawl back in? He goes, every day. I look for it every day. And that is a fundamental mind shift, because if we're constantly pushing ourselves to grow, we're always going to be growing. And like this right here, that, I've said it, this is an exercise for me. This is an exercise for me to keep building my confidence. There's a difference between confidence and cocky. I've always been cocky. Confidence, maybe, but you have to be able to, in that, have that confidence that you are bringing value to those that you are spending time with in the principle of present. If you are not creating value, you are not the architect, and you're not creating a fair exchange.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Around that fear kind of thing. Like, if you are the CEO of Microsoft, how can the fear, like, I'm trying to get my head around it. Like,
Yeah.
Your fear can't be about, oh my gosh, like, I'm not good enough, or I'm not, I might lose my business tomorrow. Or, I mean, there clearly the financial piece gives you some sort of buffer.
Mhm.
And that's what I'm thinking. Like, so your fears, I almost in my head, I'm thinking, how can they possibly be around business?
Mhm.
Because you have those financial buffers and those resources in place, because you have those financial resources, like you
Yeah.
can hire the lawyers, the accountants, the big named people in order to provide that. So I'm thinking, as like a smaller business owner, I get why you would have daily fears and self-doubts, and it's like, maybe today everything actually is going to fall
Yeah.
apart because you don't have that. But
Yeah.
so your fears must be more around other things that maybe you can't control, like my son might die today, or
Well, I think this is the not knowing what we don't know. But, unfortunately, since I brought it up and Vince brought it up, I'm gonna, and I can't remember what it was, but I think of Elon Musk. So we know he recently just acquired Twitter. And I can't remember what the dollar amount was, but I saw a summary, and I think it was let's call it $180 million, $180 billion. Tesla's worth $100 billion. And then you had two other companies that equaled the other 80 billion. So he was leveraging everything to buy one. So because what our limited thinking sees, these big ideas that these people have, because financial security it might be there for them, but one misstep by a CEO, it can take years and impact thousands of people. Like a perfect example, I got to know Bernie Marcus and Arthur Blank and Bob Nardelli, the two founders of Home Depot and their CFO. I got to know them all very well back in the day. I did their home theaters, yada, yada, yada. But Arthur was the visionary. He was the architect. He created a fair exchange with Bernie Marcus, and they built Home Depot. And they leveraged time, law of straight line, with other people wanting to give forth time. Those employees got stock. And when they went public, every one of those employees became millionaires overnight. That is living big. But one misstep by one of those two all those people could never become millionaires. Now, fast forward to when they stepped down and Bob Nardelli stepped in, CFO, not a visionary, to become the CEO, become the architect. What happened to Home Depot? As Lowe's was rising, Home Depot narrowed their aisles, raised the aisles up to put more stuff on the shelves, made the aisles darker, narrower. Traffic went down, impacted Home Depot. Their stocks plummeted by, an exorbitant amount. And Home Depot is still falling almost second place every year to Lowe's. And that was because of not having the vision. And Home Depot's done layoffs. And I think both companies do very well. But if you look on a global scale of what that one impact did by narrowing the aisles by, 8 inches, that's not a lot. But when you got 20 aisles, what does that do? When you stack, another column of materials up, now you got these gloomy aisles. And I know, you got Menards and stuff up in the north and Canada and some others. But when you get down here in the Southeast or, across the country in the States, there's a significant difference. You talk to a Lowe's employee versus a Home Depot employee. There is a difference. That's an impact a decision can make. You look at Steve Jobs versus the Microsoft, you have people who think a reliable product. I know what it's going to do. They know where they're going to get. We're paying that money versus having a fan that's going to rave about the product. But look how close Apple came to filing bankruptcy before they brought the architect back. But that architect never stopped learning. He went and bought Pixar and, some other stuff and created a leverage position. So those things like that there, we may not fully understand, but it helps get when you look at that and draw the correlations to the laws and, how people built their businesses. And when that person stepped away, you got to make sure you have the right people in place. And Bob Nardelli is not a bad guy. He's just not a visionary. If you're going to replace a CEO, you got to replace him with another CEO who can take your vision and expand upon it. Not try to put guardrails around it. Because as entrepreneurs and as every successful business is, they look to expand their business because you cannot, as Dan's talked about, we cannot scale everything. Can't square our staff thinking we're going to double our revenue. We can't, go from a pepperoni pizza to a cheese pizza and think we're going to double our revenue just because of having two options. We have to think of other things, having a salad, having drinks, all these different things build upon each other that allow us to scale. And in every one of those things, there is a level of expertise that has to be known. So, but it's a great question. And I think to better understand, it might be good to ask Aaron because he asked that question to him. And he may have gotten some examples. But I can just, I'm trying to give context to what I know. So, and hopefully that helps a little bit. But we're coming up on time here. So I'm hoping everyone's going to go through this week and have a very fruitful week, a very positive week as we go into our last law, which is the law of the two rabbits, which is a great place to end because we started with the law of the architect, law of two rabbits. It's going to be a really good conversation. I think it's going to be a great place to finish up this 10-week little exercise to show how these laws intertwine with one another. And as always, if you need me, I'm here for you. Hopefully I can provide some impact in some way. Vince, I'll send a text message today. You'll be copied on it. If I can help anybody else, let me know. And as I'm trying to get back in the habit of, as we sign off, is live well and prosper fairly. But thank you all for taking time this morning with me.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Y'all take care.